Hello everyone! Today we will be discussing which program to use to make scientific posters. You don't have much choice here, but I see frequently people screwing this up. Let's go over potential programs that people are frequently using. First, we have normal PowerPoint. You can also get this one for free if you use OpenOffice or StarOffice. And then we have 3 Adobe programs. We have Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe InDesign. So which program should you use? Well, actually PowerPoint is not that bad. Most people are already familiar with PowerPoint, and if you create a big spread in the beginning, you can align all your objects on the spread, and it's quite simple to use. So if you don't have much time for your poster and you want to have still a decent poster, it's totally fine to use PowerPoint. However, as PowerPoint is not supporting any vector graphics, you should make sure that all your pictures are really big and have a high resolution. If people are interested, I will also make a tutorial and show you how to use PowerPoint to make your poster. Then we have the other 3 programs from Adobe. Let's talk about the obvious bad choice here. This is of course Photoshop. As the name says, it's for photos and we want to make a poster. And the problem with Photoshop is that it is pixel based, so you would need to put out the actual poster for print in a very big resolution to get it print nicely. Also, Photoshop doesn't support text very well. So for a movie poster, Photoshop is very nice, but for a scientific poster with quite some text and some lines and figures and so on, Photoshop should never be considered for making a poster. Then we are left with InDesign and Illustrator. And quite often people use Illustrator. And to be honest, that is not a very bad choice. However, we have some specific problems with Illustrator. First, we don't have spelling correction. And then also some text features with text kerning, so the space between letters and things like that. So the really fine detailed things are not very well implemented into Illustrator. Also, if you want to use boxes with rounded corners, as it is used on posters quite often, Illustrator has some problems if you resize the boxes. So if you pay attention when looking at some posters, you can really tell if people made those with Illustrator and just dragged the boxes to resize them and they were screwing up the corners. So why should you use InDesign then? Well, InDesign works pretty much like PowerPoint. You have a big spread where you can place things on. Also, InDesign is very well made for text because it's made basically for print media like magazines or newspapers. And the really nice thing about InDesign is that it does integrate very well with Photoshop and Illustrator as well. So InDesign itself gives you the very nice text functions and very nice boxes that look very well on posters. Also very nice features to align your elements on the poster itself. Because, well, it's a layout program for print. So that's exactly what we need. And the big trick with InDesign is that you can take your Illustrator files. So let's say we have made a figure or flowchart, vector-based of course, so it prints nicely. We put it into InDesign and then it actually gets linked. So now we have a complex figure in InDesign itself that we would normally make with Illustrator, which we actually did. And if we now want to change something in this figure, we can just open the document in Illustrator, make our changes, and this will be updated in InDesign automatically. The same thing goes for pictures that we made with Photoshop. This way, our main document is not very cluttered and it's still very easy to work with. If you would do the same thing in Illustrator, we would get the problem that we would have all of our graphics in one document, and this can get very messed up with different layers and so on, so we don't want to do that. So I highly recommend using InDesign, and if you don't have much time and you're more familiar with PowerPoint, there's also nothing wrong with using PowerPoint. Sure, you can still use Illustrator, but I think InDesign has some key advantages above Illustrator, and please never try to use Photoshop for making a complete poster. So it's very simple. InDesign for the layout, Illustrator, as the name is telling you, only for illustrations, and Photoshop only for photos. If you keep those things in mind, nothing can go wrong with your poster.